All right, Screwtape Letters, letter 30. So this letter starts out with a reprimand from Screwtape to Wormwood. He says, "My dear Wormwood, I sometimes wonder whether you think you have been sent into the world for your own amusement." So Wormwood is not doing very well. The letter starts out with a realization that the patient has acted in the best way possible, like in terms of morality, which is the worst way possible for the demons, right? So, aka Wormwood failed in his temptations. So, everything in the last letter that they were trying to do, they failed at every single thing. And so, he goes through how the patient was frightened. And he thinks himself a great coward, so therefore he feels no pride. But we talked about how that emotion of fear or fright isn't a sin in itself, so he didn't sin. And he actually did everything he was supposed to do, and perhaps a bit more. So he did all the positive things, right? We talked about actions. He had some of those like emotions, but it came to nothing. And because he thinks himself a coward, he's not prideful about it. This is like their worst possible situation. And then he talks about justice, and I thought this was good for us to bring mention of. But it says, at any rate, you will find that the justice of hell is purely realistic and concerned only with results. Bring us back food or be food yourself. So just kind of an inkling for if Wormwood fails to get the patient into hell, Wormwood will become food in hell. So he's setting up this fact here right now. All right, so moving into the main part of the letter. So Screwtape is advising Wormwood to use the patient's fatigue or tiredness to hopefully lead him to some sort of sin. Now he talks about how fatigue can produce extreme gentleness and quiet of mind and even something like vision, but that usually it's when we're absolutely exhausted, sometimes we get those beneficial things in those moments of like overtiredness. He said moderate fatigue is really a better soul to sow discord or sin. So first of all, to make him focus on his sense of disappointment, right? So that and that like it's an injury on him, just like we talked about before with like the time that's taken from us that we think should be ours. Making the patient focus on, well, this should be mine, or I shouldn't have to do this or whatnot. So focus on how he's being disappointed and how those things could cause him injury. He said to feed him with false hopes, right? So to make him think like, well, I'll keep doing this for the next like 30 minutes, but at that point, right, that'd be just unreasonable to think that this is going to last past 30 minutes. So like this false hope that it would be done soon. To lead him to give up, right? It says, in attacks on patience, chastity, and fortitude, the fun is to make the man yield just when, had he but known it, relief was almost in sight, right? So with chastity, if you're like, trying to control yourself in your situation and you're, persevering and then you give in because you're like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I thought this would be, temptation would be over by now, right before they were going to get that opportunity to persevere and power through. He talks about how he's not sure if he's going to meet the girl, but they can even use that to kind of put some discord between them. The last thing he's going to mention is maybe to start to attack the patient's faith, not based on the intellect, because they've already tried that, it's not working, but to be based on emotions, right? It turns on making him feel, when he first sees human remains plastered on a wall, that this is what the world is really like. So he's going to see death, right? There are bombings that are happening in his town, and he's going to see people's bodies on the street. And really, like, what Wormwood's going to try to do is make him feel like this is what the world's really like. Death and evil and destruction. So now Screwtape's going to go into an examination of this word real and what we mean by it. Now he's setting up this, he calls it a general rule, which they've established. When you're reading this for yourself, you might think that, oh, I believe this to a certain extent, or I don't believe this. Obviously, with these like general rules, there is some openness for what we actually believe or hold to be true. So according to Screwtape, this general rule of the word real, as he says, in great spiritual experiences, or in any experiences which can make humans happier or better, we talk about only the physical as being real. All that really happened was that you heard some music in a lighted building, right? Here, real means the bare physical facts separated from the other elements in the experience they actually had. So, and this is, I think this has happened to me before where I've like tried to explain something and really the only people like can see the physical parts of it, right? No, but it was like a really beautiful like spiritual experience. Like, okay, but this is what actually happened. You know, you were outside and you saw a bird or whatever. And then the spiritual elements are going to be considered as subjective. So like, oh, you know, like, sure, you had that spiritual experience, but, you know, this is what really happened. And if that's what happened for you, that's good for you. You know, they're not, like, other people aren't always able to recognize or appreciate spiritual experiences that happen to other people. And then on the flip side, in experiences which can discourage or corrupt them, in other experiences which don't lead them to happiness or to becoming better, the opposite. So the spiritual elements are the main reality. So for example, when he sees these dead bodies, that's an experience that could discourage him, right? And to say like the spiritual elements are the main reality. Death is real, and this is all that matters. And not really taking regard for the physical facts, you know, in the same way that we kind of, the same center we hold in the spiritual experiences. Right, so it says, thus in birth the blood and pain are real, and the rejoicing of that new life, of that new baby, is a mere subjective point of view. In death, the terror and ugliness reveal what death really means. So having this like double standard where we think only the physical to be real in awesome, beautiful experiences, but then in negative experiences, the spiritual elements are really real. It says, the creatures are always accusing one another of wanting to eat the cake and have it, but thanks to our labors, they are more often in the predicament of paying for the cake and not eating it. So they're setting up, these humans have set up within us this experience where we can't enjoy the spiritual experiences and call them spiritual. And then in the negative experiences, we hold those to be more real and not looking always at the subjective, at the actual facts of the case.